Shalom and good morning, everybody. Great to be here. This is February 5th, 2023, and the beginning of the new week. So to start us off, I'm going to blast our shofar. We know that we are in a battle, and this is a battle cry to get your battle face on, become ready, make sure that your spiritual armor is on good and tight each and every day. We can't slack off. We can't let it loose at any moment because the arrows are flying out there towards us. So we want to make sure that we are well protected from the protection of our Father Yah. Let's give it a blast and blow one with me if you've got one. All right, that should wake everybody up. So I'm so excited to be here. Hope you had a wonderful Shabbat, was restful and being restored by the Father's goodness and grace. It is so wonderful to be able to take that day to rest and to really dwell closer to the Father, set all our worries, fears, struggles aside, and welcome in the Father so that we can have that rest in Him. So we are going to be talking about the Haftarah and Besorah today. The Haftarah is coming from Judges 4, verses 4, all the way through chapter 5, 31. And the Besorah is going to be from Matthew 14, 22 through 33. And this is week 16, Beshalach, and it was a wonderful Torah portion, just so many wonderful events and miracles taking place. Really, it's just an example of what hopefully we can witness again. You know, as this second Exodus approaches, the time is coming, and I feel like many of these miracles will be on display again. So we need to make sure our eyes are wide awake, that we're not overlooking these as just happenstance or a coincidence, but know that it is the power and authority of Yah moving in our lives to show that He is real, that He is in all of us, and He is in control of everything. So let's go ahead and get going. This first portion is quite long out of Judges, so I'm just going to read line by line today, and then I do have some additional comments and insights from commentary on the Besorah portion. All right. And bear with me, some of these words are a little tricky. I haven't had a lot of practice reading out of Judges, so hopefully everything goes smoothly, and forgive me if I pronounce them with my Southern Hebrew draw. So starting in chapter 4, verse 4. And Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was ruling Israel at that time, and she was dwelling under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Beth El in the mountains of Ephraim. And the children of Israel came up to her for right ruling. And she sent and called for Barak, son of Abinam, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, Has not yahuah Elohim of Israel commanded? Go, and you shall draw toward Mount Tabor, and shall take with you 10,000 men of the sons of Naphtali and of the sons of Zebulun. And I shall draw unto you Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his company at the Wadi Kadesh, and shall give him into your hand. And Barak said to her, If you go with me, then I shall go. But if you do not go with me, I do not go. I love that. My wife Lee really just talked about that last week on A Mercy Poured Forth. If you're not going, Yah, I'm not going. And that's how we need to be. We need to be ready for His command, for His small voice. You know, let's not be hasty with our decisions and jump into something. We all generally know that that doesn't work well for us. So let's be listening for his small voice, whether he's telling us to move or stay still. We need to be going where he's going, just like the cloud and the pillar of fire in the wilderness. They followed it wherever it led them. Verse 6, and she said, I shall certainly go with you. Only there shall be no esteem for you in the journey you are taking. For yahuah is going to sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. So Deborah arose and went to Barak to Kadesh. And Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh. And he went up, 10,000 men under his command. And Deborah went up with him. And Habar, the Kenite, of the children of Habab, the father-in-law of Moshe, had separated himself from the Canaanites and pitched his tent near the terebinth tree at Sasanim, which is beside Kadesh. And they reported to Sisera that Barak, son of Abinum, had gone up to Mount Tabor. So Sisera called all his chariots, 900 chariots of iron, and all the people who were with him, from Haraseth Hagaim to the Wadi Kishon. And Deborah said to Barak, rise up, for this is the day in which yahuah has given Sisera into your hand. Has not yahuah gone out before you? And Barak went down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men after him. Shalom, everybody in the chat. I didn't say anything to you guys. Great to have you here. My wife, Lee. We've got Bridal Armor and Asia. Hope you all are having a wonderful first day of the week and that you have a blessed continued week. So picking up in verse 15. And yahuah destroyed Sisera and all his chariots and all his army with the edge of the sword before Barak. And Sisera leaped from his chariot and fled away on foot. But Barak pursued the chariots and the army as far as Haraseth Hagadim, and all the army of Sisera fell by the edge of the sword. Not one was left. Very similar to what we saw in Exodus with the army of Pharaoh, being destroyed down the Sea of Reeds. We visited Jacob's tent yesterday, and Bill Cloud had some really awesome insight just regarding what could have possibly happened in the situation of the Mitzrayim. We obviously know they were separated by that pillar of cloud and fire. And so it was very dark, and they may have actually been unaware what was even happening with the splitting of the sea. And so, of course, when that cloud or fire, pillar of fire went away, it was very dark, and they continued to go after them. They may have not even realized that they were now entering into the sea. And at that point, it was too late. They were already in. We know that Yah basically destroyed their chariots and caused their wheels to fall off. And it was obviously a frightening and chaotic event for them. And they were all swallowed up by the hand of Yah. And so what a great connection here as we see a very similar thing happening in Judges. I believe I was in 17. So not one was left. They were all destroyed by the edge of the sword. Sisera, meanwhile, had fled on foot to the tent of Yael, the wife of Heber, in Canaanite, the Canaanite. For there was peace between Yabin, sovereign of Hatzor, and the house of Heber, the Canaanite. And Yael went out to meet Sisera and said to him, turn aside, my master, turn aside to me, do not fear. So he turned aside with her into the tent, and she covered him with a blanket. And he said to her, please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty. So she opened a bottle of milk and gave him a drink and covered him. And he said to her, stand at the door of the tent, and it shall be if anyone comes and asks you and says, is there a man here? You shall say no. But Yael, Heber's wife, took a tent peg and took a hammer in her hand, and went softly to him and drove the peg into the side of his head, and it went down into the ground, for he was fast asleep and exhausted, and he died. And see, as Barak pursued Sisera, Yael came out to meet him and said to him, come, let me show you the man whom you are seeking. And when he went into her tent, there lay Sisera dead with the peg in the side of his head. And on that day Elohim humbled yhvh, sovereign of Canaan, in the presence of the children of Israel. And the hand of the children of Israel grew stronger and stronger against yhvh, sovereign of Canaan, until they had cut off yhvh, sovereign of Canaan. Quite a courageous act to bring them in, as a friend, but really deceive them and end their life that way. I would say that's the warrior mentality right there. So chapter 5 is titled The Song of Deborah and Barak. And on that day, Deborah and Barak's son, Abinam, sang, saying, for leaders leading in Israel, for the people volunteering, bless yahuah. Hear, O sovereigns, give ear, O princes. I do sing to yahuah. I sing praise to yahuah, Elohim of Israel. yahuah, when you went out from Seir, when you stepped from the field of Edom, the earth shook and the heavens poured. The clouds also poured water. The mountains flowed at the presence of yahuah. This Sinai at the presence of yahuah, Elohim of Israel. In the days of Shamgar, the son of Anath, in the days of Yael, the highways were deserted, and the travelers went in crooked ways. Leadership ceased. It ceased in Israel, until I, Deborah, arose, a mother in Israel arose. They chose new mighty ones. Then fighting was in the gates. Neither a shield nor spear was seen among 40,000 in Israel. My heart is toward the inscribers of Israel, the volunteers among the people. Bless yahuah. You who ride on white donkeys, you who sit on rich carpets, and you who walk along the way, declare it. By the voice of shouters, between the places of drawing water, there they recount the righteous acts of yahuah, the righteous acts of his leadership in Israel. Then the people of yahuah shall go down to the gates. Wake up, Deborah. Wake up. Sing a song. Arise, Barak, and lead your captives away, O son of Abinam. Then he sent the remnant to rule the nobles. yahuah came down for me against the mighty ones. Out of Ephraim, their root is against Amalek. After you, Binyamin, with your people out of Machar, inscribers came down, and out of Zebulun, those who handle the scribes' reed. And the heads of Issachar were with Deborah, and as Issachar, so was Barak, sent into the valley under his command. Among the divisions of Reuben, there were great searchings of heart. Why did you remain among the sheepfolds to hear the bleatings of the flocks? The divisions of Reuben have great searchings of heart. Gilad remained beyond the Yarden, and why did Dan remain on ships? Asher continued at the seashore and remained by its landing places. Zebulun is a people who risk their lives to the point of death. Naphtali also on the heights of the field. Sovereigns came, they fought. Then the sovereigns of Canaan fought in Tanakh by the waters of Megiddo. They took no spoils of silver. From the heavens they fought. The stars from their courses fought against Sisera. The wadi of Kishon swept them away, that age-old wadi, the wadi of Kishon, O my being, you have trampled in strength. Then stamped hooves of horses with the galloping of his steeds. Curse, Meres, said a messenger of yahuah. Curse its inhabitants, because they did not come to the help of yahuah, among the mighty. Blessed above women in Yael, the wife of Habar the Kenite. Above women in tents she is blessed. He asked for water, she gave milk. She brought out curdled milk in a bowl for nobles. She stretched her hand to the tent peg, and her right hand to the workman's hammer. Then she pounded Sisera. She smashed his head. She pierced and struck through the side of his head. Between her feet he bowed. He fell, he lay still. Between her feet he bowed. He fell where he bowed. There he felled, destroyed. Through the window the mother of Sisera looked, and cried out through the lattice, Why does his chariot delay to come? Why have the steps of his chariots tarried? The wise ones of her princesses answered her. Indeed, she answered herself. Do they not find and divide the spoil? A girl or two for each man, a spoil of dyed work for Sisera, a spoil of dyed work embroidered, dyed work richly embroidered for the necks of the looter. So do all your enemies perish, O Yahuwah, but let those who love him be like the sun rising in its might. And the land had rest 40 years. What a great song. I wish I knew the tune. I attempted to sing the Song of Moshe during our Torah reading last Tuesday, but I have not actually heard this in a song form, so it's great to see this and read it. Another great connection, because we know after they crossed the Sea of Reeds, the Red Sea, that they began to sing a song to yahuah, praising him for the miraculous wonders and from rescuing them and freeing them from bondage. So what a great connection. I see a lot of similarities between the two songs. Thank you, my wife, Lee. She says, I sang it wonderfully. I attempted to sing at least the first part. I didn't want to get too off track, so I kept it simple. Thank you, Asia. So before we get into the Besorah reading, I found this that I wanted to share just as a way to connect our Parashat Torah reading to the Torah reading we're going to see in the Besorah. There are a number of parallels between the Torah portion and the selection from the Gospel of John. For example, Yahusha's power over water, example, walking on the water, which we're about to see, alludes to the miraculous crossing of the Sea of Reeds. Yahusha calling himself the living bread and the bread of life alludes to the giving of the manna. And Yahusha's statement that all who believe in him shall never thirst alludes to the miraculous flow of water at Rephidim, and so on. We actually see more examples of this flowing of water later on in future portions. So indeed, it is fascinating to note that the Apostle Paul correlated this life-giving rock, which was renamed the Well of Miriam, which was with the Messiah. Giving the rock with the Messiah. And in 1 Corinthians 10:4 it says, and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed, and that rock was Messiah. So it's really amazing to think that Messiah was with them, roaming through the wilderness for those 40 years. Really beautiful connection and parallel. So in other words, well, I just spoke a little to it in front. In other words, Yahusha himself was the source of life for the Israelites as they wandered in the wilderness of Sinai. He was the living water then, just as he is today. And hallelujah for that. What beauty we find in the scripture. The word made flesh is the living water and the living word, the bread of life, and it is satisfying and filling. We must have that to really survive and strengthen our spiritual walk. Yes, he's with us as we wander. No matter where we are wandering, whether we have wandered astray or we're trying to walk this narrow path, he is with us always. So I just wanted to share that real quick before we get into this awesome portion in Matthew. And of course, this is accounted in quite a few of the Gospels. This is just the Matthew portion here, but it is the story of when Yahusha walks on the water. And this is found in Matthew 14, and we're starting at verse 22. And I do have the scriptures in red, and then my notes are down below, which are near impossible to read. They're too small. I'm going to have to start making these a little bigger. So in verse 22, And immediately Yahusha made his taught ones enter into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. Yahusha felt it was important for he and his followers to leave the area quickly. Perhaps this was to avoid the multitudes clinging to him as the potential source of constant bread. People marvel and flock to, even in this day and age, a magician, performing tricks. Everybody is just, wow, they want to see it, and they gather. And so here he was not performing tricks, but he was performing miracles, breaking bread and fish, creating, multiplying it to feed the thousands. And so, of course, this was a source of food, which many probably were, without, hard to come by at that time. So really, I can just see it getting out of control and a mob taking over if they weren't dismissed and dispersed. So that was probably one of the reasons why he sent the apostles away to dismiss the crowds. So therefore, Messiah compelled the disciples to get into the boat. Likely reasons why Messiah did this was because he wanted to be alone to pray. He also wanted to escape the crowd and get some rest. We know this had to be draining, the miracles, just the teachings and the healings that he performed. Obviously, he is the Son of Yah, the Almighty, and can do whatever and anything he wishes. But it still had to be draining on his ruach, and so he needed that rest and that restoration that he more than likely received through the prayer, connecting back to his Father. So he wanted the crowd to disperse as to avoid an uproar, making a scene. It could have really gotten out of control, especially with that amount of people there. In verse 23, and having dismissed the crowds, he went up to the mountain by himself to pray. And when evening had come, he was alone there. Messiah was jealous for time spent alone with his Father. In the midst of his great ministry to others, he could not neglect prayer. Alone with his Father, prayer succeeded and preceded his labors for men. He made that his priority. No matter what was going on, what was needed, he always took time to pray and connect with his Father. And I'm sure relied, like many of us speaking out in ministry, relying for that spirit, that ruach, to come within us, to speak through us so that we know what to say. And I'm sure at times he relied on that same thing, needing his Father to speak for him, to give him advice, to really say the things that needed to be said. Because even though he was an Elohim, he still was a man. So the secret to prayer fats the soul, as secret morsels feed the body. I really like these two quotes from Trapp here. While the disciples were periling, which is really to be exposed to danger, Messiah was praying for them. So he still is for us at the right hand of the Majesty on high. No matter what we're going through, he knows what we're going through, and he knows what we will go through. And he is still, to this day, until he comes back, he is praying for us, watching out for us, just really providing that hedge of protection over us as long as we're seeking him and trying to maintain that close relationship with him. I like this from my wife, Lee. What a sight and wonder. He still works wonders to feed us the spiritual bread. Amen. And that's why it is so important to read your scriptures each and every day if you have a chance. It doesn't matter how many times you've read it. You will see something new or see something different. Something will speak to you in that moment. And that is the beauty of the living word, and why it is so important, because each day we require sustenance. And so that word is our spiritual sustenance each and every day. And when we put it off, when we neglect it, that's when we start to starve and hunger for it. And that's when temptations start to seep in, and we can be led astray easier when we're desperate and not connected spiritually with the Father. Thank you, Asia. We'd love reading the scriptures. I just think there's something important to it. Whether we share our thoughts or commentary or just read it line by line, it really is important. And we're just thankful for all of you tuning in. And hope that it is a blessing for you and that you're able to glean something from the message as well. Like we say, it's not just for those watching, it's for us just as much. We are learning right there with you. And of course, when I, excuse me, I get a little choked up, the adversary does not want me to read the scriptures. So bear with me as my voice fights me today. So picking up in verse 24. But the boat was now in the middle of the sea, agitated by the waves, for the wind was against it. And in John 6, he references roughly being about 25 or 30 furlongs out of sea, which is equivalent to 3.5 miles from the shore in the middle of the lake. So it's not like somebody was just walking on the shore and they see this image. They were not expecting at all to see anybody coming walking on the water because they were miles from the shore. Let's see here. The Sea of Galilee is well known for its sudden storms. And during this storm, Yahusha wasn't in the boat with the disciples. We obviously know of another story where he was sleeping through the storm, and they were still probably just about as scared for their life in that storm as the sea was about to topple their small boat over. And he awakens and says, basically, why are you afraid? Peace be still. And the waters immediately calmed. Just another amazing sign of the Son of Yah and the power that he possessed. What amazing witness that would have been to see that. Just reading the scriptures can get our ruach burning again. But I can't imagine being one of the apostles witnessing that. That would have really got my ruach burning brighter than ever, wanting to just go share this message. You've got to see this man, what he's capable of. He has come to save us all. He is the Messiah. Just wonderful. And I hope and pray that one day we do get to see the Messiah face to face and see his miracles in the flesh. Shalom, James and Mary Isabella. Thank you for joining me. Hope you're doing well and had a great Shabbat. Yeah, Asia says, could you just imagine what an amazing wonder and sight that would be? All right, picking up in verse 25. And in the fourth watch of the night, Yahusha went to them walking on the sea. This was somewhere between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. as dawn was approaching. According to Mark, Yahusha came to the disciples when the boat was in the middle of the sea, and after they had exhausted themselves rowing against the waves and the windy storm. So I had read a commentary basically saying that because of this storm that was going on, they were fighting the water. It wasn't like they were just being blown across to the other side where they were going. They were having to constantly row and fight this storm to even get to the west side of the shore. So I'm sure they were quite exhausted as the Messiah soon approaches them. And I found this verse in Job chapter 9, verse 8, that I thought was amazing, an amazing connection to this portion here. It says, stretching out the heavens by himself and treading upon the waves of the sea. What a connection. And, obviously a foreshadowing of what was to come. Nobody then had walked on water. And so really people probably didn't quite understand what that was implying or what it would have been like to see. And so now we can see this actually coming to happen. And it's just an awesome connection out of Job. In Matthew 26, it says, and when the taught ones saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, it is a phantom. And from fear, they cried out. We too often mistake Messiah when he comes to us We do not recognize his working in the storm, nor his presence giving power to battle with it. We are so absorbed in the circumstances that we fail to see him through them. Our tears weave a veil which hides him, or the darkness obscures his face, and we see nothing but this threatening crest of the waves curling high above our little boat. We mistake our best friend, and we are afraid of him as we dimly see him. And sometimes we think that the tokens of his presence are only phantasms of our own imagination. And that is true. If we are not fully invested, we're not going to see Messiah at work in our own lives. We may want to take credit. We may want to blame something else, something supernatural, someone in a personal relationship. There's many things that put that blinder, that veil over our eyes, and really doesn't allow the beauty of Messiah to come to fruition. And really, when we're holding back our faith, we may be keeping Messiah from truly working those wonders in our lives. So we've got to trust him with everything that we have and know that he is always with us, always working his miracles, always setting our path out, because he knows our future. He knows where we're going and where he wants us. And so we don't need to fight him. We may take a wrong turn here or there, but he is always setting those steps out for us to take to get us back to that narrow path. And it was a great example in the beginning of our Torah portion, where obviously he did not lead them on the direct route. He took them around Mount Sinai, as some say, the long way around. And many of the times our lives is going to be that very thing. There's not a shortcut we can take that generally works in our favor. And so that is where patience comes at hand. We must have the patience and we must have the trust that no matter the path that Yah leads us on, it will get us to the promised land. So in 27, but immediately Yahusha spoke to them, saying, "Take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid." Messiah didn't come to the disciples to trouble them or make them afraid. Therefore, he immediately had to speak out and say to them those comforting words. And he is our comforter. Just the words in the scripture are our comfort, to know that he is with us. Do not be afraid. He will guide us. He will provide for us in all things. So do not fear what the world brings, what the adversary is trying to do. Know that the Father is in control, and there is no reason to fear. Only him is what we should fear. There are two good reasons to put away fear. One reason may be that the problem is not nearly as bad as one had thought. Perhaps you are afraid because you exaggerate the danger. The other reason is that even though the problem may be real, there is an ever greater solution and help at hand. And yahusha is that help. He's that helping hand reaching down to us to pull us out of the water, which we'll soon get to in just a few verses. He is always there to rescue us. We must cry out for him. Don't be ashamed or afraid to cry out for help, because he is always there waiting for us, and sometimes waiting for us to realize that we need him, that we can't get through this life without him. We can't get through this life with the help of another man. We need him and only him to guide us and to hold our hand on this journey called life, to lead us through our wilderness. In 28, and Kepha answered him and said, "Master, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." We have no idea what prompted Peter to ask such a question as this, but his faith in Messiah was remarkable. He really responded to Yahusha's invitation and got out of the boat. What is more natural than for a fisherman who knew and respected the dangers of Galilee to want to follow Messiah in this new demonstration of supernatural power? Being a fisherman, already experiencing these rough waters. They knew how powerful and dangerous the ocean could be. I'm sure they knew of others that had possibly drowned and died, fellow fishermen's, things like that. And so to just willingly step out on the water, knowing this was not possible except by the power of Messiah, that took faith. And I think this is one of the greatest examples throughout scriptures of what faith is. Faith can move mountains. And this is moving a mountain, because we know it is physically impossible to walk on water. But with Messiah's help, he can allow that to happen. So what faith we must have, knowing that when things seem impossible, to know that they are not impossible for our Creator. Verse 29, and he said, come. And when Kepha had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Yahusha. This is a wonderful picture of walking in faith, showing that Peter was able to do the miraculous as long as he looked to Messiah. And that's it. We have to be always looking to him. It's when we look off to the right or left, those distractions and those temptations, that's what cause us to go astray, to start sinking into the water. So keep your face focused on Messiah at all times, and that will allow you to stay on that straight and narrow path. Verse 30, but when he saw that the wind was strong, he was afraid and beginning to sink. He cried out, saying, Master, save me. This quote from Bruce, it says, Peter walked on the water, but feared the wind. Such is human nature, often achieving great things at fault in little things. Even when Peter failed, Messiah was there to save him. Peter knew who to call out to at that moment of crisis. Yahusha then brought Peter back to the boat. That's who to cry out to in a time of crisis, in a time of need. Yahuah knows what we need more than we know ourselves. And so cry out to him if you're struggling with anything. He is our salvation. He is our answer. And so he can provide whatever it is that you need. Cry out to him. And finishing up in these last 3 verses. Yes, thank you, Nina. This is very true. We love you, Abba. We thank you, Yahusha. We are so thankful for them. And, without them, this ministry, there would not be in existence. There would be no need for this ministry. And it has brought such blessings to our lives. And I hope it brings blessings to you. We just love studying and reading the word, trying to grow closer to them, the Father and his Son, asking for his knowledge and wisdom, because we are just students of the word and we will never know it all. And we're not proclaiming to be teachers. We just want to share the good news because it is so exciting and it's refreshing. And it is that water and bread that we crave and desire each and every day to stay alive. So verse 31, and immediately Yahusha stretched out his hand and took hold of him and said to him, O you of little belief, O you of little faith, why did you doubt? What a sight this would have been, Yahusha and Peter, hand in hand, walking upon the sea. That's from Charles Spurgeon. And of course, on some of these comments and commentaries, I am changing the names because we know many of them did not use the correct names, but I have taken liberty to change them. And I hope that's not a copyright issue of any kind. No offense to them. I'm just wanting to use the true names because that is what we feel important to do. And we want to give the glory to our Creator and our Messiah. Call them by what they are known by, what they proclaim to be, what they fight for us as their true names, Yahuah and Yahusha, or Yeshua, whatever you prefer. But we know those are the true names of the mighty, the almighty ones. It was not the violence of the winds, nor the raging of the waves, which endangered his life, but his littleness of faith. I thought that was a very strong saying. if you've ever been in a boat, I'm sure you have felt a little at ease, especially if you're dealing with the waves. They are extremely powerful. But to know that that's not even what endangers your life. What endangers your life is your lack of faith. That is a message that everybody needs to go away with today, knowing that it's what faith, by faith, that really gives us the strength to live. All the other things, whether we lose our life or not, if we are lacking faith, that is the real issue at hand. We need to make sure that we always have our faith as full as can be. Fill your vessel with the faith. Peter here shows us the weakness of little faith. Little faith is often found in places where we might expect great faith. I like that one too. This one was interesting. And sometimes I had to actually read it a couple times for it to finally make sense. But this is a quote from France. And it says, doubt is literally to be divided in two. But true faith is single-mindedly focused on Messiah. So when we doubt, it's dividing our faith. But when we're focusing on Messiah, that is a single-minded focus. And that's what we are to have, being focused single-handedly on Messiah. Don't let it be divided by the fear, the uncertainty of life. And that's what they're hoping and trying to do. Men, the adversary, everybody that's bringing chaos on the world, they're trying to divide your faith, divide and conquer. So keep your faith and your face singly focused on Messiah. If there be reason for little faith, there is evidently reason for great confidence. If it be right to trust Messiah at all, why not trust him altogether? Trust him with everything. Don't just trust him with this or that. Trust him with everything in your life. And I think you will really feel and know the difference. It was such a difference in our life when we just set our fears and worries aside. We stepped away from the world, all of the man-made traditions, the things that kept our foot in the world. We wanted to remove all of that. And we're still doing it. It's not an easy thing. It takes time. And really, it takes prayer with the Father to seek him on what to remove from our lives. That leaven will grow and fester if we're not removing it. You may think you've removed it all, but I know there's got to be something deep down in there. We are not perfect. We all deal with sin and struggle with sin. So reach out to the Father. Cry out to him. Ask him to show you what is left. What do I need to remove that is unpleasing to you, that will keep me from faithfully and righteously living a life that's pleasing to you? In verse 32, and when they came into the boat, the wind ceased. There's a verse here I wanted to share out of John 6:21. And it says, they wished, therefore, to take him into the boat. And at once the boat was at the land where they were going. And I found this really interesting. When Messiah approached them on the water, they were a few miles out at sea, in the middle of the sea, nowhere near the shore. And so next thing you know, once they come back to the boat, they're at the shore. This speaks of the boat being immediately at the land whither they went. This was on the western side of the lake. And we may either suppose that the wind during the night had driven them near that shore, or accept this as a miracle. And I'm believing the second one. What a miracle for Messiah to walk out on water. Why would he just stop there? I'm sure they were quite exhausted. They may have not had the energy to continue rowing to the other side. They were fearful and afraid. And so he just wanted them to be calm and at ease. So what another miracle to end up being right there on the other side. I liked that. So I wanted to share that. Nothing that I had really noticed before reading this in times past. So I found that really interesting, that they basically immediately were already on the other side. So finishing up in verse 33, and those in the boat came and did bow to him, saying, truly, you are the Son of Elohim. They moved quickly from fearing the storm to worshiping Yahusha. This was a logical reaction, considering the power of Messiah showed in walking on the water, and the love he showed in taking care of the sinking Peter. This is the first time we meet with so plain and open an acknowledgement of him being the Son of Yah, the Son of Elohim. Amazing. I really love this story, and I'm so thankful that it was in this week's reading. As the Israelites walked through the water, crossing the Red Sea, being baptized by the water, as you could say, being free, born again, out of the life and slavery of bondage, which we all are when we are baptized. That old man is dead and buried in the water, and we come out new and afreshed with a new heart of flesh, a new spirit. So I just love that this part was connected to our main portion out of Exodus that we read. And then all the other miracles that we see, Yahusha uses the water as such great examples, whether it being drawing from a rock or sweetening the bitter water, splitting the oceans. He is the water, the spiritual water, and just such an amazing connection and lesson to be learned from this. And so I hope that it was a blessing today. I know I went a little bit longer. I didn't expect to go 47 minutes, but that's okay. Time flies when you're having fun, and the word really is a joy to read. And I'm just so thankful for all of you joining me today, sharing your comments. If I missed a couple, I'm sorry. I will be sure to read over them before I sign out. And I hope you just have a wonderful week. I hope that Yah provides all your needs and that blesses you with shalom that you can only find through him. Give your life over to him if you have not. The time is now. There's no better time than now. We don't want to miss that calling, to miss that opportunity of salvation, to start afresh, to wipe our sins away, to be white as snow. Only through him we can receive redemption and salvation. So choose him, focus on him. Don't let your faith be divided. Shalom, everyone.